It's Thursday, February 20th, 2014. I'm Jimmy Principe.
I'm Sydney Foster.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 64. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy IPOs Candy Crush to get Google Fiber. Sydney makes a record-setting tech purchase. And I play some irrational Pokemon on the internet. We start tonight with yet another major acquisition that came out of quite literally nowhere.
So if you are a regular listener, you'll know that we like to measure tech acquisitions in Instagrams. So an Instagram is Tech's Last Call speak for $1 billion, based on the price for which Facebook acquired said hipster photo sharing service. So Instagram may be feeling a bit slighted because Facebook is about to make yet another purchase to the tune of, drumroll please, except not because Trey will get angry if you beat on the table, so no drumroll, 16 Instagrams.
Jesus H. Christ.
16 Instagrams.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot.
I could do a lot of things
hipster
with that
photos.
That
Like buy 16 Instagrams.
So unpack this for me.
16 Instagrams. So Facebook announced Wednesday that it has reached a deal worth $16 billion, $4 billion in cash and $12 billion in Facebook stock, to purchase mobile messaging giant WhatsApp.
So WhatsApp?
WhatsApp?
WhatsApp. Yep. Stop. Absorb for a minute.
What? What's WhatsApp? What? WhatsApp?
How do I...
WhatsApp. WhatsApp.
Exactly. So now that we've taken a minute to absorb this shocking news, time for some details. So like Instagram, after the acquisition, WhatsApp will continue to operate independently from Facebook.
WhatsApp.
And maintain its brand identity.
WhatsApp.
And potential terrible marketing opportunities.
Yes.
So according to the official Facebook press release, quote, the acquisition supports Facebook and WhatsApp's shared mission to bring more connectivity and utility to the world by delivering
shared mission?
Core internet services efficiently and affordably. Of course it is, Trey. Do you doubt the beneficence
of Facebook? Absolutely.
Of Facebook and WhatsApp.
I doubt the beneficence of Facebook almost as much as I doubt the security of Snapchat.
Well,
which, by the way, this is now worth 4 times
secure.
Snapchat officially.
4 Snapchats?
4 Snapchats or
16
Instagrams.
So, Trey, since you seem skeptical about Zuckerberg's reasoning for the purchase, you are obviously not alone in this. The speculation abounds for the actual possible reasons why Facebook would all of a sudden decide to spend all of its Instagrams. So what do you think?
I actually think this is genius. This is absolutely genius. This is possibly the second smartest move that Facebook has ever made after the acquisition of Instagram. Because this is the future. Facebook's numbers are pretty basically stagnant. Okay, I just had a meeting with a bunch of youth parents, and they were talking about all these messaging apps and the Instagram that all the kids these days are using, unlike civilized people who use Facebook. And so Facebook is essentially, through acquisitions, using its money not to dig itself and further entrench itself in the past, but to dig itself further and further into the future. Messaging apps and photo sharing. WhatsApp is the largest of the messaging apps not by far, but pretty big, with 450 million users worldwide. That's basically 50% of what Facebook has currently. So they've bought for $16 billion, which is, by the way, the second largest tech purchase ever after HP and Comcast. They have bought...
Not Comcast.
Not Comcast, Compaq. This is the second biggest of these kind of mergers ever. And what they've done is they've bought their own future. So say Facebook continues to dwindle like MySpace. Who cares? Facebook now has the 2 growth areas, messaging and photo sharing, that they're going to keep as separate brands, and they've had Instagram for almost 2 years now, it feels like anyways. And
I don't think that it's going to dwindle. I think that's the incorrect
Facebook may completely stagnate at about 1 billion users.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
And vaguely
about
fade.
Instagram's worth of users.
About About an Instagram worth of users. I like how this is just a metric now. But basically, Facebook has done an absolute genius thing with their money. They have bought the future of what they're doing. Rather than watching their own messaging app, which almost no one uses, they bought the #1 messaging app. And by the way, they beat out Google. Google bid $10 billion for this thing. That offer got rejected, and they paid $16 billion for it. Do I think it's actually worth $16 billion? Hell no. Snapchat was only valued at $4 billion. But who
Well, and it
cares?
certainly isn't worth that.
And it certainly isn't worth that. So do I actually think 450 million users in the future are worth $16 billion? Probably not. But Facebook's got the money, so apparently who cares?
Well, and it may be worth it to Facebook. You know, it may not be worth $16 billion flat out, but it may be worth that much to
Well, it's
Facebook to
clearly-
keep it out of Google's clutches.
Now let's be clear. This is not 16 billion in cash.
Right.
This is 4 billion in
I
cash.
said
This
that.
is 3 billion in employee compensation, which vests over time. The rest is in stock, and key, they get a board seat. So now the current CEO of WhatsApp becomes a member of Facebook's board, which is something that was not in the Google deal. So they get a modicum of control over Facebook's future, which is fine, and Facebook gets what could be possibly the future of social networking. Now, there's some complications here. One, WhatsApp has vowed never to do advertising and has reiterated that they will not do advertising moving forward. Ladies and gentlemen, how does Facebook make its money?
Off of advertising.
Off of advertising.
Off of super creepy advertising.
Off of super creepy advertising. WhatsApp makes its money off of a freemium model. You get a little bit for free, but if you want the rest, you have to pay, which is not something Facebook has operated in. So
Well,
we'll
but I
see
think you're
over.
ignoring the opportunities for Facebook to collect all that data on WhatsApp users.
Oh, I don't-
And
I don't
get
do-
you like
But-
if you combine it, you know.
But think about this. WhatsApp has staked their reputation on security and not keeping anything and not data mining the crap out of you. And that's one of the reasons why they don't have to do advertising, is because they don't data mine. That's been like their core principle. And in all the announcements about that, the WhatsApp CEO, whose name I forget, has been like, no, like, dude, we're going to keep our mission and this is going to be as secure as it ever was. And so this is like this weird, like, anti-Facebook thing. They've been quite deliberately trying to be the anti-Facebook, and they've just got bought by Facebook and still claim that they're going to maintain their corporate identity. So how that tension gets worked out is actually what I'm interested to see as time goes by.
Well, I don't think that that's going to happen, honestly.
Tell me more about that, Jimmy.
I think that the company that paid 16 Instagrams for them is going to have something to say about that plan of, oh, so you can either, I'm guessing this is going to be an either or. Either you have no ads or we get to data mine the hell out of you. Or
What?
either you get to have no ads and we data mine the hell out of you, or you have ads and we'll leave your users alone.
I don't know how much them being on the board now can dictate that, though. I wonder if the board seat is their way of maintaining their independence.
Yeah, but one board seat is good, but it's by no means a majority.
Well, it depends. I mean, look, they have basically three. With the employees of WhatsApp, have $3 billion in Facebook stock that's going to vest over time.
Well, that's true, but Zuck still has a majority
And
voting
has
share.
been very clear about that from the beginning.
Like Zuck, just like they don't want to give up these things, Zuck doesn't want to give up voting share.
I mean, the Instagram deal literally was just like popped into Zuck's head and he did it. Like, that was not a board-based negotiation. That was like, hey, Zuck walked in and said, hey, board, we're buying Instagram. By the
Well,
way.
and to be fair,
That's
I think
what I want
for,
to do today.
I think for $1 billion, like at the time, that seemed like ridiculous money. But
Honestly.
I really think that seeing where Facebook is now, where Facebook is so as you know, Trey, I take pictures and I post them places like Flickr because I want to share them with people and like good quality and keep all my rights and do all those things. Because Flickr is a great photo sharing service. You know how many people look at my Flickr photos? None.
Me? No, actually, not even me.
I mean, I've started opening them up more for public to view, but no one of my Facebook friends or anything would look at my Flickr photos. So I started posting on Facebook and linking out the Flickr in addition to, hey, if you want to go look at these like good quality ones, here they are. But that is how people share photos.
Yep.
Is through Facebook. No one uses, like, there's Google Plus.
Well, they're through
Google
Facebook if they're our
Photos.
generation, or if they're kind of your generation or younger, they're using Instagram. I mean, that's
Right.
like I was in a youth meeting for a church, and all these parents are like, yeah, Instagram, they're all they do is talk on Instagram. Instagram is not only their way of sharing photos, but it's also their way of chatting. They use Instagram the way we used AIM.
Yeah, we started a unit on digital media in my one of my classes, just talking about how digital media and social networking are used and safe ways to use them, et cetera, and I got very similar feedback. One of the first things we did was look at some statistics, and this is the program, of course, is citing statistics from 2011, whatever, and saying Facebook is the most visited site, and I was discussing with the students, and we were all very curious to see where those numbers were going, because they were saying the same thing. Oh, Instagram. So it's where the kids are, y'all.
So speaking of where the kids are, y'all, something else that's vaguely Facebook related is another tech IPO coming up.
Yeah, that's right. This week in IPO news, we have another social free-to-play game maker that has decided it's about that time.
Because that went so well for Zynga.
I know, right? And it's funny that you make that comparison, because everyone else has too. Candy Crush developer King Games has officially filed with the SEC this week for their initial public offering, causing many journalists to harken back to a similar type of company that IPO'd a couple of years ago, Zynga. So King Games will trade under the ticker symbol King.
How did no one have that?
I know, like Burger King, really? They're probably BK.
Who knows? I'm now going to look. Keep talking.
Yeah, look up. Fact checking is the death of podcasts.
You talk, I type.
On the New York Stock Exchange. Now, as far as revenue, the company is no slouch, with 2 Instagrams worth of revenue last year, and just over half of an Instagram worth of profit. For those of you keeping score, that's $1.9 billion in revenue and $567.7 million in profit. Wow. So Trey, what do you have for me?
BKW.
Burger
King worldwide.
Worldwide. I guess I knew that. They're based in Miami. The company has a large portfolio of games to its name, but its most popular game, Candy Crush, has 93 million daily users and more than 1 billion daily games played. So like 1 Instagram worth of games played.
Jeez.
So Sydney, do you think that King Games can shake the comparisons to Zynga and actually be successful in the mobile free-to-play marketplace? Or are they almost inevitably doomed?
I personally have
you
not
ever played Candy Crush?
No, that's what I was going to say. I've never played Candy Crush. I'm not on the Candy Crush bandwagon whatsoever, so
I've crushed some candy.
I cannot comment on the addictiveness of the game, but just based on what I've heard surrounding this story, it sounds like, they have a lot of other games, but I'm concerned. I worry about the fact that this is really their only big hit. And as we have seen with Zynga, Farmville was a scourge in the world of Facebook for a very long time, but eventually, it went under, and I feel like Candy Crush is probably doomed to do the same eventually. And so if they don't come up with that next big thing quickly, this could be a very short trip to the...
Jimmy, I simply counter your question with another question. Name another King game.
Their number 2 game is Pet Rescue Saga.
Did you know that before you read that?
No, I'm getting this.
Had you heard of that game before you read that?
Well, this is going to be my example. So 93 million for Candy Crush. Their total across all of their games for 2013, for the fourth quarter 2013, was 304 million. So 93 of which was Candy Crush, right? And then their second game was 15 million daily users.
Yeah. So look, I don't think they're worth it. I honestly don't. Right now, Candy Crush is huge, and free-to-play games have more of a lifespan than we think.
We don't know. Well, I'm still playing Temple Run.
Well, right, and the number one most popular esports game, League of Legends, free-to-play, been being played for years. Dota 2. Free to play. So like free to play games in the PC space.
Those are more hardcore though.
I think there's a pretty big
difference
which
means they haven't even
esports and things that you casually do on Facebook.
But what I'm saying is, it's not necessarily that just these free to play games always go away. But in the end, they're still going to need another game that's as big as Candy Crush. Because you want to know what Wall Street's really interested in? What have you done for me lately? They made one game that blew up. One game. And they're going to IPO on that? They're crazy.
Right. Well, and if you think about, I mean, as we've talked about for forever now, you know, anytime Apple does earnings announcements, it's like, look at all this awesome money we made, and Wall Street's like, oh, really?
Oh, really? Did you release a new product?
Didn't.
No.
And
okay.
so...
Oh, you released a new product that looked like last year's product? Oh.
Yeah, but it's...
If,
yes.
you know, if Apple has a hard
that
time
really a
meeting
new
expectations, it's the... You wonder what's going to look like for poor little King.
Well, right. I mean, Zynga has tanked. I mean, absolutely tanked. They're worth almost nothing. And they had this huge IPO. Here I am. Huge IPO where they got, you know, all of this value. And we all looked like, how can they sustain that? It must be a bubble. And then they tanked. What does King think they're doing? Yeah, sure, they have 180 games, and they have all these developers, and they have a feeder site where they just throw up a whole bunch of games and see what sticks. But you want to know what stuck? Only one game. Only one game has stuck, really. I mean, 15 million daily players isn't terrible or anything, but it's nothing compared to 93 million.
Well, the other thing is that, and you made the comparison to League of Legends and Dota for free-to-play games. I think that the competition in the mobile app free-to-play game marketplace is ridiculous, because you have all these game developers that are just trying to get their game out there and will figure out monetization later.
Well, also, I think what's interesting is just the ease of development compared to a full-scale game. I mean, here, you know, Flappy Bird was making 50 grand a day. Flappy Bird, designed by one dude stealing assets from Mario. And that was one dude. And he was raking in the dough and had 50 million downloads.
Well, my understanding of Flappy Bird is it's very similar to a Flash game I played, you know, in middle school.
Right, and Candy Crush is basically Bejeweled.
It is basically Bejeweled.
So, look, rip off another designer, steal a basic game concept, really small team, pop a game out there, see what sticks. But the problem is that does not give an advantage to the companies that IPO and do huge things, because the space is so fluid and the games are so basic.
Also, how is their cost? Because, you know, if you do a simple revenue minus profit, that means their cost is something like $1.4 billion.
I can't take credit for this analysis, but on a Daily Tech News show with Tom Merritt, the analysis that was offered up is basically they're spending $1 to $2 per person playing in advertising to get in new players. Because there's a high churn in these games, so people start playing and then stop playing, and they need to constantly acquire new users. Mm-hmm. And so they are spending all of that money in advertising, not in developers. Because developers are pretty cheap in comparison to advertising. It's actually where most of the costs of any of these games are going, unless it's a big AAA title. Big AAA title, like BioShock Infinite, which we'll talk about here in a minute.
$200 million.
$200 million. And that's a different thing. But where King Games costs are, it's in advertising to people, getting all the, you know, deals that they need to advertise that game to get more people to play it, because they only make money.
Share.
Because people just drop away from these games, not because they're bad per se, but because just people leave games, and so they need to constantly acquire new people.
Once again, because there's always a new game.
Yeah.
To play.
Right.
And so like, I still play Temple Run, but I also play some Candy Crush, but I also play, like, whatever. I don't play any Angry Birds anymore.
So, Jimmy, tell me... well, I'll ask you about this, and then we need to move on. But tell me about Candy... I've never played it. Tell me about Candy Crush Saga.
Probably the best thing that they have going for them is that they give you 5 lives. And so you get 5 attempts to beat puzzles. And as you keep going, you know, if you don't lose one, you get to keep it and keep going for as long as you can. But for every one you lose, it takes it half an hour to regenerate that life. And
then so I can pay to have it regenerate faster?
You can pay to have it regenerate faster. You can also pay for not tools, but like upgrades, such as that you can more easily get rid of jewels,
Candies.
or bits of candy.
Candies,
Um,
okay.
You know, basically it makes the game easier. You can add moves for
So
like,
it's play to win.
$1.
It's pay to win.
Yeah, actually
Okay.
it is.
Fantastic.
I'm at a point where I feel like I need a very specific set of. I mean, I'm this close to stopping playing, and I only started playing a month ago because, and it was nice because, you know, I'd use my 5 lives, I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I can't play for another 3 hours, so.
Yeah, but you're not a crazy person.
I am not a crazy. I also refuse to pay into most of these free to play games. I'll work within their. I mean, for things like where I don't have a problem with make me pay for more lives. That's not a problem. I have a problem with make me pay for something so I can get more moves or you
So
know.
you don't have a problem with pay to play. You have a problem with pay to win.
Yes, exactly.
See,
And your example of hats in Dota,
well, look,
I'm okay with.
Look, if you cats being cosmetic upgrades for characters, like most of the Valve free-to-play games, you pay just for cosmetic things. They grant you no in-game bonus, but they make money off of it because people want to show off and customize their character. But you don't have to. It is completely optional. You can get all of the gameplay for free. Absolutely free, and then people buy hats. And there's Brad Shoemaker over on Giant Bomb bought a $35 item. A $35 item that confers no in-game benefits. It is basically a hat or a decorative item. That I prefer as opposed to Candy Crush or even League of Legends, where League of Legends you can pay to get additional characters. That bothers me.
Well, because I'd honestly pay for a ridiculous looking hat so that my character would look different.
Right, and because we're kind of silly, kind of frivolous, you don't have to really get invested in it. You can just spend a couple bucks, get something super dumb.
Well, and I know on Call of Duty, they've had it where you can. One of their in-game purchases was you could buy skins for your weapons.
Same idea.
Hats. And you could do that in Halo as well. I mean, that's something that's been running around for years, and I don't have a problem with that. But if you have it so that there's a gun that I can't get unless I pay you for it, and it's ridiculous.
See, that to me, I don't have a problem with free to play as long as their model is you get the whole game, you get all of the gameplay. You can buy dumb stuff, and plenty of people just buy dumb stuff, and that's great. Like I have no problem with people spending money on dumb stuff, but
and
let
even
me
in
play
this
the
one, it'd be
freaking
like,
game.
You know, you've used your 5 lives. You want to keep playing.
That's just quarters in an arcade. I don't necessarily have a problem with that either.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And in fact, I think that that's a good model for mobile games because a lot of people, if you're like, I've almost been tempted to just throw money at the keep playing thing.
Right. That's nothing new, and that's not super insidious because
it's not insidious at all. I think it's pretty logical.
It's just quarters. So speaking of not insidious at all, what's going on with Google besides not buying WhatsApp?
That sounds very, very pointed there, Trey.
Well, after last week's news,
I do have to say that it is my dream to one day live in a city offering Google Fiber.
I'm about to live close to 2 of them.
And that's it. And that dream may be much more achievable in the near future than it once was. I no longer have to move to Kansas City or Austin. Google has identified 9 different markets as potential areas for future fiber expansion.
Uh-huh.
They are Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina.
Raleigh-Durham. Hotlanta, Georgia. Nashville, Tennessee. San Antonio, Texas. Phoenix, Arizona. Salt Lake City, Utah. And San Jose, California. And Standing Center, Portland, Oregon.
Also, you skipped Charlotte.
I didn't. I said Charlotte.
Oh, Trey did.
I skipped it.
Trey went right to Hotlanta.
Hotlanta, Georgia.
He does like to say
actually,
Hotlanta.
It's 34 different municipalities because, you know, in Atlanta they include, you know,
Decatur.
Decatur as one of them, actually. Which apparently is
an
where
independent
original
city with
Waffle
its own
House is,
school
I've learned.
district.
But anyways, Google says that they will be conducting detailed studies of factors that affect construction plans in each place. So that's like, you know, topography and utility plans and things like that. Although there's no guarantee that Google Fiber will come to any of these cities, Google has said that they would be prepared to build in all of them. They just can't be sure, you know, what factors there are that would affect how feasible it is to roll out this fiber. And
like
they'll make the
AT&T
report
being
by the
based
end
in
of the year.
Atlanta.
Say what?
Like AT&T being vaguely based in Atlanta.
Yeah, that's a thing. So Trey, are you looking forward to potentially having some Google Fiber goodness in Atlanta in the near future?
Yeah, absolutely. Sign me up.
So what could possibly go wrong?
Sign me up. I don't care if they have to rip up all of the streets. I don't care if...
They've even said that they don't want to rip up streets if they don't have to. They want to use existing utility poles wherever possible.
Sure. Wonderful. Sign me up. What I have to wonder, though, is how far does this stretch? So I live 25 miles in my other house. The parsonage where I work is 25 miles from another gigabit city, that of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chattanooga, Tennessee has municipal gigabit internet available.
They're actually one of the good examples of how municipal internet can work really well.
I live 25 miles from that. Just happens to be over a state line.
You're in a different state.
And I'm in a different state, and I can't get it. So I am looking
Georgia is also one of the states that was considering legislation not allowing municipalities to do their own broadband.
As was Kansas City, as was Kansas, and where is Kansas City? Kansas City.
It's both in Kansas and in Missouri.
One of those, I think it was Kansas, was proposing similar legislation that has died on the vine, thank goodness. But that happened this week as well. I don't know. Atlanta would be a perfect city for it. It's a young city. It's a city that's growing. There's a lot of tech stuff here. It was recently declared the nerdiest city in America. I think we reported on that story. It's also got a huge...
By what metric?
Oh, I don't... it was like number of...
Dragon Con?
It was like number of conventions, and there's a whole bunch of metric. We talked about it.
comic book stores.
Comic book stores per capita, and I mean, stuff like that. But it's also, this is where the CDC is. This, Emory University, a huge amount of healthcare stuff. Like, this would be a great city to finally take on a truly large city.
Okay, I'm going to use Houston as a counterpoint to that. We have the largest concentration of hospitals in the world by a factor of 3.
Houston, you can't do it.
Yeah, it's also... The Houston metropolitan area is the same size as the state of New Jersey.
Right.
So, there's that.
I mean, Atlanta, for a southern city, is relatively compact. And
it's only Rhode Island size.
It's only Rhode Island size, as opposed to Dallas or Houston, which are more like the size of New Jersey. So I think that's part of it. Is Atlanta is the largest city on this list? Yes,
Atlanta is the largest.
It's the largest city on this list. And the only reason why you can
do it, San Antonio is pretty big,
not compared to Atlanta. Atlanta's top 10.
San Antonio is like number 10.
I mean, we're talking about a relatively big city that's also compact enough that you could make this happen in a meaningful way, and even maybe reach the suburbs. Heck, even MARTA, our transportation line, makes it to the suburbs, sort of.
All right, it makes it anywhere.
I'm going to prove you wrong here.
I'm seldom wrong on the internet.
Number 7 is San Antonio.
Okay.
Number 10 is San Jose. Number 11 is Austin.
Interesting.
Atlanta is
based.
Number 40.
Number 40 in terms of... What is this metric? What is this metric?
Can
you tell me?
It's Wikipedia, okay? I'm trying to...
But what specifically is the metric?
Population.
Population of what?
Of the city.
No, you can't just say...
I think it's the greater metropolitan area. I think it...
And here comes a lot of fact-checking.
Yeah.
No, fact-checking is the death of podcast.
Too late now. You've
no
challenged
more.
Trey and called Trey wrong on the internet.
Without fully explaining your metrics.
Yeah, well, because I didn't read the freaking article.
This is always your downfall.
As it's as an estimate by the U.S. Census Bureau. I don't know.
Yeah. Estimating what?
Population
of?
Yeah, but we
the
don't...
city.
Yeah,
What do you call the city, though? Because we don't live in the city of Atlanta.
I will check. I will use Austin as my check. So it says Austin is 842,000.
This must be okay. So Houston's 2 million, which means this is living inside the actual bounds of the city. This is not metro area. This is just contained within the city. Or Houston would be roughly 4 to 5 million. Los Angeles would be more like 9 million. New York would be more like 12 million if we were actually taking this into account.
All right, fine. What is the Atlanta metro area?
I don't actually know, but
I will use Wikipedia to answer this question as well because it'll tell me. Metro is pretty freaking big. Okay, we'll click on this.
Pretty
5.4. Okay.
Right. And this is where southern cities start to play in, because if you play in metro area, Dallas is bigger than Houston, for instance, because that includes
it adds Fort Worth.
Because it adds Fort Worth,
which is cheating.
Sure, but that's why I say you're using. That's why I say
Fort Worth tells all those Dallas people where they could go and how they could get there. Okay?
Right, but what I'm saying is you're looking at the wrong measure if you're talking about Google Fiber.
Right.
Because you're talking about contained within the city center, which if that's all they're going for, this is not a brilliant idea. Because for any city in the South, that's almost meaningless, because what you really want to reach is that kind of surrounding areas.
Also, extraterritorial Houston is freaking massive, so that's
right,
not even
which is why you can't do it.
Either.
Which is simply why you can't do it. See.
Anyways. Look, I searched and I came up with a list of United States cities by population using U.S. Census data. I maintain that based on my data that this is fine. Anyways, we are way off the rails. So the point is that
okay, so if you do by metropolitan area population,
is it good or is it
Atlanta's
bad?
number 9.
Atlanta is the 19th largest city in the world, beating out every single other one on this list, which was my point. Boom goes the dynamite?
No, I don't think so.
But Atlanta is the 19th largest city in the world. Phoenix is the number 25 city in the world.
So, anyway.
So there I was. Anyways, the point is that Google Fiber good. Come to big city.
Well, try it at least.
AT&T to curb. I do really like also that they're offering in Kansas City for $300 installation cost, you get 5 megabit per second internet for free.
Yeah. That's a heck of a deal.
I'll take it.
That's better than I'm getting.
It cost me $30 a month to do it on Comcast.
That's better than I'm getting out in the country. I would love that. I paid $300.
Yeah,
absolutely. I could also write it off as a business expense, but that's an entirely different thing.
Right, but the thing is that once you pay for it to be installed, then it's there. You don't have to worry about it.
So speaking of paid for and it's there, some doors open and some doors close. Ken Levine, creative director at Irrational Games, the makers of our number 4 game of the year, BioShock Infinite, announced via the company's...
One of the best games ever, BioShock.
And one of the best games ever, BioShock. Announced via the company's blog this Tuesday that he was shutting down the studio in order to pursue, quote, a smaller, more entrepreneurial endeavor at Take-Two. He will take a 15-member team to make, quote, narrative-driven games for the core gamer that are highly replayable, whatever on earth that means. There will be a focus on having a closer relationship with fans and focusing on digital downloads. Some people with whom he will not be having a closer relationship with are the 100-plus people at Irrational who have just now lost their jobs. Although 2K, the pseudo-parent company of Irrational, which is all owned by Take-Two Interactive, they confirmed to Game Informer, quote, the BioShock universe remains a rich and creative canvas for many untold stories, and we are looking forward to exploring the next BioShock experience, end quote. And there will be a job fair for those who are now unemployed. However, a lot of people have still had to lose their jobs and are put under a strain for this new vision of Ken Levine's. So what do we think this means, and what do we think really happened here?
I'm going to let you provide your theory of what really happened there, but I'll say what this really means. I think that highly replayable games are going to be things like, if you look at original Mass Effect as an example, with original Mass Effect, you have depending on what actions you take, you affect the outcome of the game.
So you're thinking some sort of branching storyline.
It'll be a branching storyline where that's why it'll be replayable, because it'll be obvious that the decisions you make impact the outcome of the game. And so I'd replay it. So like a Gone Home type game that has a branching storyline where it doesn't always end the same way for everybody.
I think
I mean, that
makes the most sense if you're talking about a replayable, narrative-driven game, because otherwise, things that are... It's like a movie. Like, how many movies do you own that you actually, rewatch on a regular basis?
Smokey and the Bandit,
Clue.
Top Gun, not Smokey and the Bandit 2.
no,
I think
Clue.
Clue, Saving Private Ryan, and Zoolander.
When have you ever
Braveheart.
watched Saving Private Ryan?
We don't own
in
it
the
anymore.
Several years. Okay. Point
I own
Lord of the Rings, Star Wars,
Star Wars.
not
yes.
that many.
No. Yeah. So I agree with Jimmy. I think
Two hands.
branching storyline is the way
hands.
to go if they're trying to make something that's narrative and replayable.
So I read this, and my conspiracy theory hat gets spinning, because there's a lot of really weird details here. So
Oil hat.
So the way Ken Levine explains it is he wanted to do this entrepreneurial thing, and he was willing to start his own company to do it. And 2K said, hey, I got a better idea. Why don't you do that, but stay here? Which 2K is
But
pretty...
we'll keep paying you.
We'll keep paying you. You do whatever you want. And 2K and Take-Two have proven that they can hold on to their kind of lead studio talent. The Housers, who are the guys who run the Rockstar, which is guys who make GTA and Bully and Red Dead Redemption, are also 2K, and they also have managed to stick around this whole time, long after they got acquired. So Take-Two has a reputation for being pretty good for their lead talent. It's not like what happened when Microsoft bought Rare and everyone just ran for the hills. Rare is the folks that helped develop Donkey Kong and a whole and GoldenEye for the N64 and a whole bunch of great Nintendo games. Then they got bought by Microsoft, and everyone who was good about it ran for the hills. And that's not what's happening. That's not tends what happens with 2K. But I also wonder how much choice Ken Levine had in this matter. The other way you could read this is BioShock did not... It sold all right, but it did not... BioShock Infinite did not sell as 2K had probably expected it to sell.
Because people were expecting, a better shooting mechanic.
Right, but
Which was
the
a
Ken
mistake.
Levine games, that's not possible. And so what could have happened is Take-Two said, hey, Irrational's over. What are you going to do? And Ken said, hey, what if I stay and keep like 15 people? And they say, 15's better than 200. You got it. So it could just be that Ken Levine is having to fall on his sword for a management decision that was made by 2K.
Although they're saying that they're going to keep BioShock around, they're going to do something with that universe. And so that makes me think that it's more the former than the latter. Because if they were worried about the fact that the most recent BioShock game did not perform as well as they thought they would, they wouldn't be so open about, yes, we will keep making BioShock games. Do not worry.
No. Think about this, though. They could be making a more mass market appealing BioShock game with like less story and a better shooting mechanic. Guess who would not want to? But guess who would not want to make that game?
Ken Levine.
Ken Levine. So you go to Ken Levine and say, here's what you're going to do for BioShock 2. BioShock Infinite 2. Ken Levine tells you where to go and how to get there. You either say, Ken, you're fired, or Ken, you're no longer working on BioShock. What's Ken going to say? I can have my new thing funded by 2K or not. And he chose to be funded by 2K. Look, this is all speculation, but that's what makes sense to me.
But the fact that they closed the
entire studio
is...
Yeah, but the raison d'etre for that studio was Ken Levine. Full stop. It was Ken.
Mm-hmm.
And that studio, and it's kind of sad to say. And also, the analysis I've read is that Ken is taking anyone else who could have possibly taken over at that studio. He's taking the 15 core people and telling the rest of them to take a hike. So there's no point in continuing Irrational because Ken's taking whoever's of like leadership value. I'm not saying that the programmers and the designers and the artists don't have value, but they're not the leaders of that team. Ken's taking the leaders into his new venture. So apparently there's just not any value left. And that's not Ken's decision, that's Irrational's decision. And Irrational made their own, or not Irrational, that's 2K's. Take-Two's decision. And they made it, Irrational or not. See what I did there? It's very clever, yes. Are we disappointed or sad about this?
I like BioShock. I'm sad that he's not making any more BioShock games.
Well, maybe
I'm not
now
he won't play a BioShock Infinite 2.
Maybe now he won't be encumbered by the need to make a shooting mechanic. I mean,
I hope so. Actually, if we're gonna look at like silver linings for this, that is totally the silver lining for this. No more crappy shooting mechanics.
No more need for it.
Hooray.
Because he won't have to worry about making it so mass market. Because clearly, the only reason why Bioshock has a shooting mechanic is because they think that's what's going to sell. Now that he's doing smaller things with a smaller team, he doesn't need to worry about selling as many copies, and we can get a Gone Home style game from Ken Levine, which would be awesome. Like, amazingly awesome.
And he'll make you really question, like,
Reality
your life.
and my choices and races, and he can finally like fully unpack themes that he has made. He, unlike many designers, has managed to work into AAA titles. Really challenging stuff like gender and race and poverty and and free will and determinism and all these really fascinating
I think the
things.
free will one was really the thing in.
Would you kindly?
Yeah. Well.
I mean, exactly. Like he's able to work these things into AAA titles. If he's no longer kind of tied down by what needs to be in a AAA title, this could get really cool really fast.
Or he could tank. Who knows?
Or he could
But
tank.
Probably not.
But look, there's this whole idea of really talented creative folks breaking off and doing smaller things has had a lot of success lately. You look at a studio like Telltale, which is exactly that, where they make these small episodic games that only appeal to a niche audience. They're doing great. You look at Tim Schafer and Double Fine. Double Fine's doing all right as well.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And letting them be creative. Are they selling huge numbers? No, but they don't need to because they don't have the overhead of a major studio. And so they're able to do these highly creative, highly interesting things.
Right. You have to be super successful to cover a $200 million game. You don't have to be super successful to cover a $200,000 game.
Or even a $10 million game like, what's the, oh crap, the game I'm playing right now, Broken Age, right? Broken Age
I
is
don't
like
know what game you're playing right now.
Broken Age is a adventure game by Tim Schafer, the guy who did Monkey Island and all these great LucasArts games. And it's a $10 million game. He'll probably easily make that back, and half of that was funded by Kickstarter anyways. So it's much easier to be creative and experimental when you have much lower overhead. And it's going to let Ken Levine do what Ken does best, and not what Ken really sucks at, which is gameplay.
Speaking of interesting gameplay,
Yeah, that's this week's last call. So, have you ever questioned what would happen if 1,000 monkeys had 1,000 typewriters and 1,000 years?
they'd eventually write Ulysses.
Apparently, they'd eventually play Pokemon Red
On a typewriter?
on a typewriter.
Let me go look at how this is doing now.
So,
problematic.
you can't, sometimes you just can't write this stuff. An anonymous Australian programmer launched a social experiment on game streaming site Twitch.tv last week. He programmed an emulated version of Pokemon Red to accept inputs from the chat room. That is to say that what someone typed into the site's chat box would become the command for the character on screen. Type
Fantastic.
up, and he moves up. Hit type start, and the game clicks start, etc. As time progressed, tens of thousands of people descended on this, all typing commands at the same time, leading to complete and utter chaos. The game, like, they let go of key Pokemon, and they wandered around aimlessly for dozens of hours. They have also made real progress in the game. In this complete anarchy, they conquered the game's first 4 gyms.
Well,
Currently, we're in a
done,
battle.
community.
Eventually, a democracy mode was added that allowed characters to vote every 20 seconds or so as to what the game should be. But if enough votes in the chat for anarchy, and the previous anarchy can return. This has been an absolute internet phenomenon with what, over 19 million viewers now?
Yeah, we have 19.3 million viewers.
Total
And right
ev-
now, there's, at the time of recording, there's 64,800.
But there have been well over 100,000 at different points.
Yeah, it's midnight.
And it's
Central
been just
time, so.
swinging back and forth between democracy and anarchy. And they've also been like performing social engineering among the game's community to actually make small amounts of progress. And I think at this point they have almost all the badges and all kinds of stuff.
It's the prisoner's dilemma, Pokemon
Drowsy
style.
just grew to level 25. by the way.
Wow. And so the Pokemon end up like super over leveled because they just do a lot of like random wandering and grinding.
Currently,
So-
it's pounding.
So, if you're bored this week and want to laugh and rip your hair out and are tired of NBC's Olympic coverage, then Twitch Plays Pokemon is absolutely for you.
This is what I'm doing at work tomorrow instead of work.
This is what I'm doing in the studio tomorrow instead of editing. Like, this is awesome. This is the best thing on the internet going. And it just shows, like, what the internet can be. Random, dumb crap of group participation. This is fantastic. This is better than chat roulette. Because there are less random dongs.
And on that note,
it's probably time to end. Thank you so much for joining us on this random and slightly argumentative version of Text Last Call. If you have any feedback, such as what are the actual sizes of cities in America, don't email us at podcast@textlastcall.com,
just Wikipedia it.
/TextLastCall. I was right. And Pinterest.com/TextLastCall and at TextLastCall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the internet. Oh yeah, we also have another show that is up and running quite strong. It's called Techies Talking Tech Tonight, informally called T4. There's a podcast feed for it on iTunes, so you can subscribe. Just search Techies Talking Tech Tonight. Or you can go to the editorials page on our site, and it will be posted there as well. Good night.